How's it going, everybody? Welcome to We Do Tech, and also to my look at the new Gigabyte Gaming RTX 4090 OC in a video's a crazy beast that will devour pretty much anything else, and including your wallet and your power supply. And you guys can already see just how massive this thing is, and we'll get into the cables. Don't mind that for now. We'll talk about that later on, but we're gonna take a look at this card. I previously did do an unboxing of the card, taking a look at the design and everything, just before we could do reviews. But now finally we can get into the benchmarks, the temperatures, and so on, and see actually how this bad boy performs. Alright, so let's quickly go over the pricing and then also the specs later on, because that might make you think twice about actually getting one of these beasts. Now, on paper, the 4090 is around 50 to 100% more powerful compared to the 3090 Ti. It still has 24 gigs of GDDR6X memory and a 384-bit memory interface, but that's also kind of where the similarities ends. Everything else is bumped up quite a bit, with double the tensor and RT cores, and even the clock speed at around 50%. But now, of course, specs on paper isn't necessarily everything, so we'll get into how it actually performs later on. Now, pricing wise, the Gigabyte Gaming RTX 4090 OC is currently retailing for around $1,700 on a Newegg, which is around $100 more than the Windforce and $100 less than the Aorus Master. Now, as for here in South Africa, it is currently retailing for around 46,000 Rand, which again is the price of kind of a car here. So, car or a graphics card, you choose. Now, of course, that is quite expensive for a GPU, but just going back a couple of months, we saw that the 3090 Ti actually launched with an MSRP of $2,000. So you are saving kind of a bit here, around $300, $400 you're saving compared to the previous card. So yeah, and it does have quite a big spec bump with it, so you do have the options there. Now, however, with the GPU mining craze somewhat being dead, there's still some coins that you can mine, but mostly it's not really worth it. Is it a better option to buy a 3090 or 3090 Ti second hand, or buy a 4090 instead and of course get quite a bit bump in performance? Well, that is definitely the $1,600 or $1,700 question. You gotta answer it for yourself, and also hear from your wallet if it actually approves. Now, compared to the previous RTX 30 series cards, the new Gaming OC design does look much better in my opinion. Even though the previous cards wasn't necessarily ugly, it didn't have that much character really to it, which was unfortunate. However, with the new 4090 Gaming OC, it does get a bit of that back. It's not anything crazy, but with the size of this thing, it does make it look a bit more aggressive. Now, speaking of size, just like I said in my unboxing video, this thing is crazy big. It makes normal GPUs like my 3080 Vision, also from Gigabyte, look small. Plus, it's now also a 4-slot card, so say goodbye to any ideas of fitting this actually in a really small mini ITX case. Definitely just make sure about your dimensions before you actually try fitting inside a case or buying a case for that. Now then, taking a look at the back for I/O, you do get a 3 DisplayPort version 1.4As and a single HDMI 2.1 port that can support 8K 60 or 4K 120. And then next up is a power draw, and here it does get a bit much. Firstly, there is the new 16-pin PCI Express Gen 5 connector, which fits in the middle of the card, which would be fine, but because of the included 16-pin to quad 8-pin power adapter, yes, you're going to need 4 8-pin normal PCI Express power cables. It does make it look a bit cluttered with everything going on here. And with the adapter being extremely stiff at the connecting point, you don't want to bend that, because there have been some information going around. Igor's Lab did a piece on that as well, where the adapter actually overheats with some of the soldering points, and that actually burns the adapter and can also even burn your power connector on your GPU. Now there's still plenty of information needed, whether it's just the adapter or something else, but it does look like the 16-pin is a bit of a problem. However, also some of the information going around is that that's only due with the included NVIDIA adapter. Some of the third-party ones, those do not have the issue as of yet. But mostly you will be fine. Just don't put any tension or bend the power adapter here, and that's why I left it like this, and that's why I can't put the side panel on the case, because I don't want to damage anything, because I definitely don't have the cash laying around to reimburse Gigabyte if I actually damage this card. So I'm gonna leave it at that. But now I do think that later on there's going to be like 90-degree adapters and so on, third-party ones that's going to be made, and also your power supplies, next generation power supplies will have the included 16-pin cable with it, so you're not going to need actually the adapter. So we'll see how that goes. But now something to think about when actually getting this card, and then also for your case, is that, for instance, the 4000D airflow here does not have any cutouts and on the power supply shroud here at the bottom, so I can't neatly hide all of these cables as well. I need to route it through the front here, so that doesn't look a bit untidy. Depending on your case, you might have your cutouts here just below the graphics card, and that's also going to look a bit neater. Now, with all of that out of the way, for our power draw, I did see a max of 424 watts, and that was without any power limit adjustments. It was just set at 100%. So you can imagine that it's going to go higher than that if you do any manual overclocking. In games, it mostly ranged around 330 to 400 watts, and then on idle, it was only around 20 watts, so that's okay. So you can also imagine a 500 watt power supply definitely isn't going to be enough to cut it here anymore. Even my 750 watts wasn't enough to handle both the 4090 and then also the new i9-13900K. So luckily Cooler Monster set me up with a 2000 watt power supply, so hopefully that will be enough at least for a year or two till the next 5090 or 6090 comes out, because everything else is going more efficient except graphics cards and CPUs. So yeah, we'll have to live with that. Now, because of the crazy power draw, cooling will need to be just as crazy. And again, by just looking at the size of this card, you can already see that. Now, as for the fans, again, they are larger than most, and like the previous cards, the two outer fans does rotate counterclockwise, while the center one rotates clockwise to reduce turbulence. The fans also has a fan stop mode, meaning that if it's not under load, the fans will stop spinning to keep it nice and quiet. Now, for cooling, it did do a decent job, reaching a peak of 69 degrees under full load with ambient temperatures of around 20 degrees. The fans was, however, running at 79% to keep it below the 70-degree mark. Now, as for how the 4090 performed, well, I paired up with the new i9-13900K and 32 gigs of 5600 MHz DDR5 memory, with all of the games set either on high or ultra presets in 1080p, which I know a lot of people necessarily not going to play, but some still do, especially streaming. It easily reached over 100 FPS, even with ray tracing set on ultra in Cyberpunk. Siege even reached over 700 frames. So I guess it's time to upgrade that 360Hz monitor of yours to something a bit higher. Now, on a 1440p, it was the same thing here, except now ray tracing Cyberpunk with no DLSS fell below 100 FPS, but everything else was still way up there. Then for a 4K, which you'll most likely use this card for, it was only Cyberpunk on ultra settings without DLSS that fell below 100 FPS. However, everything else, again, set on max settings on 4K, did do over 100 FPS, and by enabling a DLSS, you get an extra 50 to 100% a bump in FPS. Although I did have some mixed results here with performance on some games with DLSS and FSR, where you didn't really get a performance increase, or you even saw a drop in performance, especially in 1080p, and that was especially with a Cyberpunk getting a measly 10% bump in performance. So I do believe there's still going to be some drivers and some game updates and so on that's going to be needed to definitely increase the performance here, but just overall, we can see that you're definitely going to get an extra 50 to 100% with DLSS, and that's going to be crazy. So now we actually wished we had 4K 240 Hz as an option, but we'll deal with it. It won't be 4K 120. It's still good enough. Now, as for clock speeds, everything was left on a stock here, with it hovering around 2745 to 2775 megahertz. In Borderlands, however, it did drop to 2700 megahertz in 4K because of the 400 watt power draw and temps around 70 degrees. And again, that was everything on stock. If you want to overclock it a bit more, you should be able to get that extra bit more out, even though it is already an OC model. But majority of people won't necessarily do that, so you're gonna get similar results to this. Now, I will say that unfortunately I did not have a 3090 or 3090 Ti to compare it to, because with the new i9-13900K system, I didn't have the time and also don't have the cards with me, so unfortunately I wasn't able to compare it to the 4090. But if you're just looking for all-out performance, then this is definitely going to be an option for you. And if you have the cash to actually spend that much on a card, then you always want to have the best, and this is definitely going to be the best. But now that's pretty much it for my look at the Gigabyte Gaming OC RTX 4090. A big shout out to Gigabyte for sending the card over for a video, and I'm definitely looking forward to some of the new 4080 cards as well coming relatively soon. So a big shout out to them. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, and comment like always. And if you guys want to get it for yourself, I will leave links in the video description, so check that out. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about the card. Are you looking forward to actually buying a 4090 or any other 40 series cards once they're actually released, or what's your plan with that? But anyway, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll check all of you next time. Cheers, guys.